The Tyrant's Beloved Empress. Chapter 39. Jingzhe. Note, Jingzhe, or the awakening of insects, is the third of the 24 solar terms in the traditional Chinese calendar. It usually falls around March 5th, marking the time when hibernating insects are believed to be awakened by spring thunder, signifying the end of winter and the beginning of spring. This period is also associated with increased rainfall and warmer temperatures, making it a crucial time for farmers to begin spring plowing. Li Haiyun's right hand was wrapped in a bandage that hung around his neck, making him look haggard. And Changqing entered the guest hall and was quite surprised when he saw him. He had heard that the two had had a squabble but hadn't expected it to be this serious. Seeing Changqing, Li Haiyun immediately stood up. He bowed deeply and apologized. "I've implicated Wang Fei. Were you admonished by Wang Ye due to last night's misunderstanding?" He carefully studied Changqing and was relieved that he did not seem to be hurt in any way. Changqing saw that Li Haiyun's attitude was quite genuine and the skepticism from before subsided. This cousin seemed to have different virtues compared to Madame Li. Changqing decided to treat him with a little more sincerity. "What happened? I heard that cousin had a dispute with my big brother." "Sure enough, fortunate news does not leave the door but bad news travel for thousands of miles." Li Haiyun smiled bitterly and said, "To tell Wang Fei the truth, this matter also had something to do with the misunderstanding last night. I had a little too much to drink and it was my cousin Chang Yu who had urged me to seek out Wang Fei, claiming that he would keep an eye out for me. After Wang Fei had cleared up the misunderstanding, I had wanted to find Chang Yu to have another drink but he was nowhere to be found. Having sober up, I believed he might have manipulated me into finding you and let Wang Ye witness the scene that would have consequently doomed the both of us. I went back and questioned him about this and he actually admitted it." Li Haiyun showed a woeful expression. "I lost my composure and hit him on an impulse." Changqing was surprised. "It's natural that my eldest brother hates me and wants my demise, but targeting you," Li Haiyun said depressingly, "because of my achievements, Uncle had frequently admonished him for coming up short. He seemed to have found me an eyesore for a long time. Sadly, he was presented with an opportunity last night. He had regarded this cousin as a close friend. Whether it was the time he had achieved his top scholar title or when he had failed to take the imperial exams, Li Haiyun had poured his heart out to him. And Chang Yu had always been a reliable elder brother who would comfort him. But to think he had borne malice towards him for such a long time. Then what's the matter with the old matriarch?" Changqing remembered that the old matriarch had always been in good health and had managed to live till the age of 70 before passing away. "It was my fight with Chang Yu that drew the attention of my aunt, uncle, and the grand matriarch. I told them about what happened. Not only did they not reprimand Chang Yu, they even blamed you for destroying our kinship. Of course I couldn't accept it and said that I'll report this matter to my father. This infuriated my aunt and the grand matriarch and they scolded me for being disrespectful. I couldn't help but argue back, making the grand matriarch collapse due to anger." Li Haiyun was looking rather upset. "I had always thought that my aunt was a person of principles. I couldn't believe that she would side with my cousin instead of reason. He had clearly wanted to frame Wang Fei and myself but my aunt pushed all the blame on you. This is very disconcerting. No matter what, I'll have to tell my father everything." Changqing did not expect that there was more to this. However, he was not surprised with the family's perception of him. After all, from a young age, he had rarely done anything right in their eyes. As such, he was not angered by this. Instead, he turned to Li Haiyun and asked, "You have fallen out with the family, where would you stay in the future?" Li Haiyun replied, "My father's tenure as the magistrate in Changyang was due. Since he was going to return to Yejing, we might as well make the move now. I can settle in the new house in a few days. I came to seek an audience today as I was worried that yesterday's incident would cause Wang Fei to be implicated." I wanted to clarify in person, but it seems that Wang Fei is all right. I won't disturb you any further. I will take my leave now. After bowing, he added, consider this a debt I owed Wang Fei. If you ever need anything in the future, just say the words. His words were sincere and An Changqing did not refuse. They talked a little longer before An Changqing had steward Wang send him out. When Xiao Zhiga returned, he happened to run into Li Haiyun leaving. Li Haiyun came forward to salute. He wanted to say a few words about yesterday's misunderstandings to Xiao Zhiga, but on second thought, since An Changqing seemed to have completely cast the matter aside, words might be unnecessary. He decided to stand aside and waited for Xiao Zhiga to pass before leaving. Xiao Zhiga's face was turning black as he glared at Li Haiyun. When he saw An Changqing in the hall, his sight fell on the second teacup on the table and knew that An Changqing had been hosting Li Haiyun. He said, I saw Li Haiyun at the gate. Why did he come? He came to apologize for yesterday's misunderstanding. An Changqing then told Xiao Zhiga about the farce at the An family's residence and An Changyu's ill-natured plot. Xiao Zhiga's eyebrows tightened as he listened. Your father is highly skilled at scheming in matters of the court, but he failed to govern his family well. His two sons take after him but lack talent. They only knew how to swarm about like flies. This was the first time An Changqing heard Xiao Zhiga condemn someone. After his initial surprise, he felt the urge to tease him. What about the remaining son? Minister An has a total of 3 sons. Xiao Zhiga looked at him and said earnestly, the third young master takes after his mother. There's no doubt that he is excellent. An Changqing chuckled, thinking how this quiet person rarely knew how to flatter others, but once he did, it was incredibly effective. Even his mother was included in the flattery. Xiao Zhiga knew not why An Changqing was laughing, but seeing his smile, his brows slightly eased. Li Haiyun's father will be transferred back to Yejing, most likely with the promotion to Deputy Chief of the Ministry of Revenue. The Ministry of Revenue is in charge of the country's grains, taxes, and expenditures, and most importantly, the imperial treasury. A highly influential position. The Crown Prince and Third Prince will do everything to try to win him over. To avoid suspicions, it is better to keep a distance. An Changqing responded with an "oh," and grinned at him. Is Wang Ye trying to avoid suspicion, or is it because he does not want me to come in contact with Li Haiyun? Xiao Zhiga stiffened and only answered moments later. I don't like him. An Changqing's smile widened. He said with a big grin, since Wang Ye doesn't like him, then I will have as little contact with him as possible. Xiao Zhiga responded lightly with an N. An Changqing stopped talking about Li Haiyun and changed the topic. Mother and Yu'er will move out in 2 days. The workers employed for them are all from the village. I wanted to talk to Wang Ye about transferring a few bodyguards from the manor to look after them. You are fully in charge of such matters. You don't have to report it to me. Xiao Zhiga then gave An Changqing a deep look. I have something to tell you. What is it? An Changqing's eyes turned inquisitive. It's not convenient to speak here. Xiao Zhiga then led him back to their courtyard. After entering their room and closing the door and windows, Xiao Zhiga took out the instructions written by Hu Shifei and the readily bought ointment with a few small jade rods and placed them on the table. This is a fitness guide that I was given by the doctor. I've also prepared the necessary items. You should do these exercises every day to keep your body strong. An Changqing was a little confused. He picked up the prescription and after glancing through the contents, his face turned red and he instantly threw the paper back on the table like a hot potato. What's the purpose of doing this? You're a man and it is not aligned with the principles of yin and yang. You need to look after your body to prevent injuries. Xiao Zhiga spoke with utmost seriousness, almost like he was talking about an important military maneuver. Looking at the items on the table, An Changqing secretly cursed in his head. He quickly read the prescription one more time before tossing it and everything else on the table into the second drawer of the cabinet by the bed. Xiao's Higa was still anxious and reminded him, do it according to the guide every day. Only after you're well can we consummate our marriage. And Changqing heard his words and felt as if his brain was swelling. He blushed with embarrassment and stared at Xiao's Higa and spat, who wants to do that with you? He then pushed open the door and ran out. Being left behind, Xiao's Higa was at a loss. Clearly yesterday he had said that he wanted to do it. Why did it change today? Asterisk asterisk asterisk. By the time that the New Year festivities ended, it was already halfway through the first lunar month. The remaining half came and went in the blink of an eye. Very soon, it was already the 8th of the second lunar month, ushering in the end of hibernation as flowers bloomed to welcome the spring. This time last year, the ice and snow had melted and light spring showers took their place. Foliage had begun to thrive, filling the land with greenery. The quiet streets and cold alleys had been bustling in preparation for the flower festival. However, this year, the winter had stayed and there were no signs of spring. Even the layer of snow on the buildings refused to melt away. And Changqing sat by the brazier and looked at the snow-covered roofs in the distance and knew that this was playing out just like it had in his previous life. Xiao's Higa had previously gone to the palace to beseech Emperor Qing into issuing warnings to the people to prepare for the cold and refrain from leaving their houses. However, Emperor Qing had the imperial priest make a divination on the spot and proclaimed that the snow would lift in a few days and spring would follow, discrediting that eccentric Taoist priest for spouting nonsense. Emperor Qing had reprimanded Xiao's Higa and turned down his suggestion. And Changqing heard the news and was quite disheartened. He felt that since everything had been predestined, the disaster from his previous life could not be warded off after all. Xiao's Higa tried to comfort him, saying that the items they had hoarded to stave off the winter would be able to save a lot of people. If the situation was as serious as he had said, he would find another way to make the court listen. And Changqing had listened to his words, feeling relieved as he thought of the clothes, grains, and coal piled up in the warehouses. Now, it was clearly springtime, but the temperature continued to drop day after day. And Changqing was worried for his mother and sister living outside and sent more food and coal to their new residence. In the afternoon, when the servants who had gone to deliver the items came back, hailstones suddenly began to fall from the sky. One by one, the pebble-size hail fell repeatedly, tearing down weaker tiles on the roofs. And Changqing was relieved when he saw the servants taking shelter under the roof that he had previously prepared for them. The memories of this event were too far off. He could remember that the snow disaster began with a hail but could not remember the day on which it would happen. He had been anxiously preparing for this day since the start of the second lunar month. The pounding hail lasted for nearly 2 hours, and what followed was a heavy blizzard accompanied by powerful roaring winds. And Changqing had long since instructed for the roofs of the Wang Manor to be repaired and reinforced to withstand the hail, but this was not the case for the rest of the houses in Yejing. At this time, the streets outside were in chaos. Several weak houses had their entire roofs collapse. Many homeowners were trying desperately to repair them. Many were also injured in the sudden hailstorm and were currently holing up at Yejing's healing halls to seek treatment. Meanwhile, at the back palace, Emperor Qing was furious. He demanded for the imperial priest to be punished and summoned Xiao's Higa into the palace. End chapter. The Tyrant's Beloved Empress. Chapter 40. Get Rich. Xiao's Higa had been expecting this. He took in Changqing's hand and comforted him. He then put on his official robe and took a carriage into the imperial palace to have an audience with the emperor. In Jingzhe Palace, dragon braziers were burning bright. A golden curtain sweeping on the ground was pulled apart as Emperor Qing leaned against the soft cushion. 2 palace maids were massaging his arms and legs. Not far away, a middle-aged Taoist priest was carefully adjusting the fire around the pill-refining cauldron. A faint medicinal fragrance was rising from the cauldron as occasional cracklings of the fire could be heard. "Xian Yi, Are you saying that this eccentric Taoist is probably more powerful than even your master? Emperor Anqing's eyes lit up as he fiddled with a white jade flask in his hand. The Taoist priest Xianyi opened the cauldron lid and placed the refined pill into a small white flask. He then presented the sealed pill in front of the emperor. That's right, your majesty. To be able to decipher nature's mysteries and foretell disaster, this ability is not something that my master possesses. If what the northern warlord said was true, then that eccentric priest is definitely someone of higher sanctity. Emperor Anqing's interest was piqued. Could he have the power to refine the pills that would make me an immortal? Xianyi observed his mood and answered with caution, the pill to immortality had always been a floating rumor. Although it is widespread, I have never seen anything tangible about it. Even if it's a person of higher sanctity, I'm afraid he would also be clueless about it. Emperor Anqing immediately changed his attitude. He waved his sleeve and said, then how can he be called a person of higher sanctity? Xianyi cupped his hand and bowed. If his cultivation is deep and can tap into the ways of the heavens, even if he does not have a way to produce the immortality pill, prolonging your majesty's life is still viable. Emperor Anqing was slightly pacified with this. He stretched his neck and looked out, eagerly urging, where is the northern warlord? Hurry up and bring him in. The eunuch at the door replied, Wang Ye had already been summoned into the palace. The moment he finished speaking, a voice announcing the arrival of the northern warlord sounded. Bring him in. Emperor Anqing pushed away the palace maids and got up excitedly. This should be the first time he was looking forward to seeing this repulsive son of his. Xiao's Higa had to come through the snow and wind to reach the palace. He stayed in the front hall to dispel the cold before stepping into the inner hall. The inner hall was thoroughly heated. There was also a strange fragrance drifting in the air, causing Xiao's Higa to briefly glance at the burning cauldron. He then humbly saluted, greetings to your majesty. Rise. Emperor Anqing looked at him with an eagerness in his eyes. The eccentric priest you spoke of, do you still remember what did he look like? Xiao's Higa sneered in his heart, but he put on a pensive expression and said, this prince met him on the road to the barracks outside the city. He was dressed poorly even in winter, with only a common priest robe and a gourd hanging off his waist. Judging from his face, he was probably around 70, but his steps were full of vigor and spirit, unlike those of ordinary people. Emperor Anqing's smile widened the more he listened. Do you have a way to find him? Xiao's Higa hesitated. This priest was quite peculiar. It was as though he was waiting for me on that road. After relaying those words, he walked away a few steps and disappeared. This prince wanted to go after him to question him further, but I couldn't catch up to him for some reasons. Emperor Anqing knew about his son's ability. With his martial prowess, anyone who could outrun him must be someone extraordinary. Have someone search for him. Emperor Anqing was overjoyed. Anyone who can bring him back will be rewarded. This priest is indeed gifted. Now that his prediction has come true, shouldn't we start preparing for the snow disaster? Xiao's Higa took the chance to ask. The smile on Emperor Anqing's face waned. He frowned and said, it's just a heavy snow, what could it cause? Besides, the local officials will deal with it. He remembered something and continued, Zhen recalled that your manor had procured quite a bit to prepare for the winter, did you not? Yes, your majesty. The priest had said that this prince has to make use of this chance to accumulate good deeds so as to ward off misfortunes to the people close to me. That's perfect. Emperor Anqing waved his hand and said, now that the treasury is empty and since you've already made the effort, Zhen will let you take care of it. Consider it as a way to help you gain blessings from the people. Xiao's Higa had long been aware of his father's nature. His words did not come as a surprise to him. He only contemplated shortly and said, if everything is as the eccentric priest said, the snow disaster will drag out. This prince is afraid that the things we've stored up are just a drop in the bucket if it was to be the only source to relieve this disaster. Emperor Anqing waved his hand with disregard. How many lives can a snowstorm claim? We'll discuss this again if it's not enough. Xiao Zhiga gauged the situation and decided not to argue. He bowed respectfully before taking his leave. The eunuch led him out, then went on to pass an imperial edict to the public regarding the search for the eccentric Taoist priest. Xiao Zhiga looked back at the resplendent palace with mockery in his eyes. He turned and left without any sense of melancholy. It had turned dark by the time Xiao Zhiga returned to the Wang Manor. In just half a day, the ground had been covered by a thick layer of snow, leaving a deep print as the carriage threaded by. On the way back, Xiao Zhiga saw that many were still trying to repair their roofs in the dark. More pitiful were the beggars who did not have a place to stay and could only huddle to find warmth. Even the prosperous Yejing had fallen to such a state, the Baidi territories and the other provinces couldn't possibly fare any better. But all Emperor and Qing could care about was the immortality pill and his own indulgences. These so-called trivial matters in his eyes, he could not be bothered with. Back at the Wang Manor, Xiao Zhiga saw that the lights were still lit in the main courtyard and his spirit was slightly lifted. He brushed off the snow before entering the room. And Changqing, who had been waiting for Xiao Zhiga, immediately stood up to welcome him. He noticed Xiao Zhiga's expression and asked, "Is everything all right?" Xiao Zhiga recounted his trip to the palace to him. "His Majesty is simply," and Changqing was furious but restrained his mouth and only voiced the injustice, "those were Wang Ye's personal funds." Xiao Zhiga was delighted to see that he was feeling unjust for him. He comforted and said, "Using the Emperor's name for this relief work would prevent others from being too suspicious. It's for the same cause after all, there's no need for our effort to be recognized." Of course, and Changqing understood this, otherwise, Xiao Zhiga would not have fabricated the story about the eccentric priest. But understanding was one thing, he still couldn't help feeling aggrieved for Xiao Zhiga. Seeing this, Xiao Zhiga said, "Wouldn't you no rather think about how much profit you can earn from selling the coal?" In the beginning, and Changqing had accumulated 30,000 pieces of winter clothes, 30,000 buckets of rice and 15 tons of coal. The winter clothes and rice were not meant to be sold for a profit. Only the coal which was used by the rich could help him recover some of the costs. It had only snowed for a few days, he would have to wait a little for the price to inflate. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. And time had proven that Xiao Zhiga was right. The snow continued to fall intermittently for 10 days, raising the snow on the ground to knee level. The winter wear that was ready to be put away was taken out again. After a season of winter, many houses already had their food depleted, prompting them to rush to get food and winter clothes. In their panic to stock up for the prolonged winter, the prices of winter clothes, grains, coal, and other winter commodities became very high. Poorer families who thought that they had managed to brave through the winter were now left with small amounts of rations to live by while looking forward to the spring that now seemed uncertain of its arrival. Meanwhile, and Changqing gathered the managers of all the shops and after the discussion, put the items up for sale. The prices of winter clothes and grains would remain unchanged. At the same time, he also set up a soup kitchen outside the city to hand out porridge and winter clothes to the poor who could not afford them. As soon as these matters were established, the first to get the news were the big bosses behind the other shops in Yejing. However, the moment they came to the door to make trouble, the clerks who had been briefed in advance simply warned them that this was Wang Ye's effort in providing disaster relief under the Emperor's edict. As such, no one dared to get in their way. And so, the dissatisfied business owners could only back down and watch as the people flocked to the northern warlords' shops to buy goods. But some were still interested in watching the excitement. Yejing was such a big city with so many people. If everyone were to buy grain solely from the Wang Manor's stores, how long could their stock last? In a few days, when they ran out of stock, those shrewd businessmen believed that they could still sell their grains at a profit. But very quickly, another news got in the way of their plan. To ensure that everyone had enough to survive the winter, the Wang Manor had limited their sale of grains to 10 bushels per household every 10 days. And after causing these businessmen to stomp their feet in anger, and Changqing finally opened his new shop selling coal. The Wang manor had dealt in the coal business before. Coal was not produced in Yejing but was transported from Qizhou up north. Every year, only a small amount was delivered, which was just enough to be used over the winter. But due to the snow disaster this year, transportation had been disrupted. Moreover, Qizhou had also been hit with the disaster. Their coal prices had soared as well, and they couldn't be bothered with Yejing. Yejing was where a large number of wealthy families was residing that could afford to spend extravagantly. Now that the weather was freezing, the delicately bodied nobles couldn't possibly put up with the cold. The stewards of every manor were in a frenzy trying to find a way to get their hands on precious coal. As soon as the new store was opened, those who were well informed immediately flocked over. Someone was stunned after hearing about the price. Why is it so expensive? On regular days, it's only 12 taels. Due to the lack of manpower, Zhou Helan was watching over the new shop. The skinny youth was wearing a blue cotton padded coat. He tucked his hands into his sleeves and gave the customer a foxy smile. Today is not a regular day. If you do not intend to buy, please give way, there are customers waiting behind you. The person at the head of the queue was displeased. He stepped aside, thinking that the next person in line would have the same complaint, but to his surprise, he did not even ask for the price. Do you have silver coal? Zhou Helan said, we have it all. How much do you want? 200 jin of regular coal, 100 jin of silver coal. Have it sent to nobleman Xiao's manor. The man then quickly took out several bills to pay upfront for fear he would miss the chance to buy the coal. Seeing this, the people behind did the same and registered their addresses for the delivery. By the end of the day, over half of the coal stock was sold. Regular coal was sold at 32 taels per jin and higher grade coal was sold at 100 taels per jin. Tallying up the accounts at night, and Changqing found that on this day alone, he had earned a total of 530,000 silver taels for selling coal. End chapter. The Tyrant's Beloved Empress. Chapter 41. I'll wait for you to come back and take me. This winter, the price of charcoal was high enough to render the people of Yejing speechless. However, Yejing was filled with affluent families. There was never a better time to spend their wealth. At this point Yejing could be accurately described by the phrase, the meat and wine of Zuman stinks and the streets have frozen dead bones. The ordinary folk were struggling for scraps to survive the harsh winter while the rich raced to buy hundreds of taels worth of coal. And since charcoal had become such a rare commodity, the families that had managed to sufficiently stock up began to popularize the act of hosting Red Ember Feasts. Red Ember Feast, just as the name implied, was a feast the rich hosted in their garden around a large kiln filled with burning coal. Thick curtains were put up to cover the wind and snow while the guests stayed near the heat to enjoy their plum wine while watching the snow-white scenery. This way these families made a grand display of their financial strength. And Changqing looked at the numbers in the account books and sighed, there are deaths by droughts and deaths by floods. The coal shop had only been open for 10 days and the 15 tons of coal in the warehouse was almost sold out. At the same time, the number of people queuing up at the soup kitchen outside the city was also increasing. There were not only the poor but also students who had come to the capital to prepare for the imperial exams. They were out of options and had to go to the soup kitchen in groups to get some porridge. Zhou Helan was accustomed to the scene and could only comment lightly, this has always been the case since time immemorial. The wine and meat of the rich turns bad while the poor struggle to find food. And Changqing heaved another sigh and said, let's hope that spring comes soon. He had done everything he could, built a soup kitchen and gave out alms, hoping to provide people a better chance at survival. But one man's power is limited after all. There were still countless who could not hold on and perished in the cold winter nights. Even so, the death toll in Yejing was not as serious as those of Suzhou, Benzhou, Liangzhou, Yanzhou, and Quanzhou, which were the provinces further north. According to Xiao's Higa, the reports from the provincial officers kept coming and were delivered to the emperor after selection. But Emperor Qing was disinclined to even take a glance at them, only concentrating on sending out forces in search of that Taoist priest. Prime Minister and have always been good at reading his master's mind, and since then, had suppressed all reports of similar nature. Eventually, due to the severity of the situation, even Xiao Zhiga, who had rarely dealt with court matters, received several urgent requests from Yanzhou. Yanzhou was located in the northernmost part of the Deya Empire, bordering the northern desert. A cold winter to the Yanzhou troops and civilians was not something they were unfamiliar with. What was more difficult to deal with was the lack of food and clothes, and most of all, the frequent raids from the Baidi people. The Baidi people were able-bodied and excelled at riding and shooting. They lived by the water, but once the season changed to winter and food became scarce, they would move southwards to plunder, burn, and kill. Every passing winter had always been the harshest time for Yanzhou. As the Empress Dowager's 60th birthday drew near, Xiao Zhiga was summoned back to Yejing in advance, leaving his vice-commander to take charge of the Yanzhou troops. For the Baidi people who feared and hated Xiao Zhiga, this was a chance they could not miss. When Changqing returned from the shop, the light in the study was still lit. He squinted and looked but could only see a faint silhouette standing by the window. As he came closer, he saw that it was Xiao Zhiga with his back facing away. He seemed to be lost in deep thoughts, not even realizing that someone was approaching. Only when Changqing had pushed the door open did Xiao Zhiga turn around. Seeing the snow on his shoulder, he frowned and went over to brush it off. Steward Wang said that Wang Ye hasn't had dinner yet. Changqing saw the deep lines between his eyebrows and knew that something was weighing on his mind. Xiao Zhiga did not want to worry him. I have no appetite tonight. I haven't had dinner either. Can Wang Ye dine with me? Changqing smiled and asked. Xiao Zhiga was clearly in no mood to eat, but he still nodded. Changqing then told Anfu to bring up the dishes. It was freezing out, so they forego the formalities and simply ate the food from a small table in the room. Changqing softly blew into the bowl of soup before drinking. After warming his stomach and seeing that Xiao Zhiga was still absent-minded, he couldn't help but ask, did something happen in Yanzhou? Xiao Zhiga did not want to worry him, but he knew that in case he had to leave for Yanzhou, there was no point in hiding it. The Baidi people have been wary of me for a long time. Now that they know that I'm not in Yanzhou, and with the rare occurrence of this treacherous winter, all the Baidi generals have been gathering. They are preparing for a massive attack on Yanzhou. The three northern states of Liangzhou, Yanzhou, and Quanzhou formed a defensive line along the border with Yanzhou in the center. The generals of Liangzhou and Quanzhou were present, and only Yanzhou had no commander. Although Xiao Zhiga's second in command was there with his cavalry, he had his hands full with the military supervisor who was on the crown prince's faction. If the Baidi were to launch an attack, they might not be able to deal with both foreign and domestic strife. And due to the disaster, Liangzhou and Quanzhou were also occupied with their own problems, making it highly likely for them to be unable to lend a hand in time. If the Baidi people managed to break through Yanzhou's defenses, not only would the people suffer, but Xiao Zhiga's years of hard work would have been for naught. Emperor Qing would hold him accountable, and the crown prince and third prince would definitely use this chance to add fuel to the fire. Such an outcome was detrimental to him. Changqing lowered his eyes. He was fully aware in his heart, Wang Ye wants to go to Yanzhou. Xiao Zhiga responded, I have to go. After saying this, his clenched fists loosened as he looked at Changqing with a little regret. But Changqing was not displeased as he had expected. He restrained his thoughts and asked, when will you leave? I'll have to enter the palace to seek permission early tomorrow. The latest I'll have to leave is the day after. Changqing looked down. He hesitated before asking, can I go with you? Xiao Zhiga shook his head, Yanzhou is in a state of emergency. I have to ride on horseback day and night. You can't come. I understand, and Changqing nodded. He did not persist and said calmly, "Then I'll help Wang Ye pack your things." That night, the pair laid in each other's embrace and slept. When Changqing heard that Xiao Zhiga had to leave, he did not show any expression. Only when they had tucked in did he grab onto Xiao Zhiga's body, revealing a trace of reluctance. Changqing closed his eyes but he did not sleep. He tried to recall the events from his last life but found that his memories of that time were too limited. At this time in his last life, Xiao Zhiga had also left for Yanzhou, but whatever had happened during his battles and the dangers he'd faced, Changqing was completely clueless about. He had cared too little about Xiao Zhiga back then. All he had heard were simple lines from the servants' mouths that it had been a fierce battle but that they had won in the end. But that battle was just the beginning. The empire that had been left by the grand ancestor was now an empty shell and a shadow of its former glory under the hands of Emperor Sheng. Domestic and foreign disputes were clouded by a veil of fictitious prosperity which was blown away only by a single snowstorm. Shortly after the snow disaster, to show his filial piety to the Empress Dowager, Emperor Sheng had increased taxes and sanctioned forced labor to construct a 90-story pagoda. The common people who were still recovering from the disaster had been drained once again. Subsequently, they could not take it anymore and had revolted. Since then, waves of uprisings had occurred throughout the country. Having to deal with the constant internal unrest while warding off external aggressors, Xiao Zhiga had stayed in Yanzhou for 3 years since then. It was only when Emperor Sheng had suddenly fallen ill that he had been summoned back to Yejing. To Xiao Zhiga, this might just be a short parting, but to Changqing, he was immensely unwilling. They had always fallen asleep together on the same bed and had never been apart from the day of their wedding. Now that he had to say goodbye, Changqing finally realized that the man sleeping by his side had quietly become an integral part of his life. Just thinking that this person wouldn't be around to warm his hands anymore gave him a feeling of emptiness and longing. With a deep yearning, he huddled closer to Xiao Zhiga. Xiao Zhiga seemed to be aware of his uneasiness and opened up his arms to hold him in while gently stroking his back. After a long silence, Changqing whispered willfully, "I also want to go to Yanzhou." Xiao Zhiga's heart burned. Yanzhou has harsh weather. It is remote and barren and frequently under siege by the Baidi people. There are only a few peaceful days in a year. It's not as good as Yejing. Changqing pushed his forehead against his chest and said, "But you won't be in Yejing. The Empress Dowager's birthday has yet to come. When the situation in Yanzhou stabilizes, I will come back." Xiao Zhiga could only comfort him so. Changqing squeezed out from his arms and looked at him, "It's a promise. You have to come back on the Empress Dowager's birthday, or else, I'll go to Yanzhou to find you." Xiao Zhiga assumed that it was just Changqing's coquettish outburst and hugged him back into his arms. He pulled up the quilt and said helplessly, "All right." Changqing burrowed into his embrace and after a long pause, he said in a small voice, "I'll practice according to the guidelines you gave me. When you come back, we can do it." Xiao Zhiga's body momentarily froze and it took a long time before he managed to come back to his senses. ******. Early the next morning, Xiao Zhiga entered the palace. He stated that Yanzhou was in a dire state and was requesting for his return. Emperor Sheng was still unsure, but it was the crown prince who was the first to voice his objection. "Yanzhou has a vice commander and 80,000 soldiers." His second brother implying that it was not enough to deal with a bunch of barbarians. Besides, the Empress Dowager's 60th birthday is coming, filial piety should take precedence. Second brother shouldn't have to be so anxious. Emperor Sheng did not speak, but his expression showed approval. Xiao Zhiga's reign over Yanzhou's troops for these many years had turned it into an ironclad state. Even though nothing seemed out of place, he was still not reassured. This time, he had called Xiao Zhiga back to Yejing for the Empress Dowager's birthday so he could plant his people in Yanzhou in his absence. Although Emperor Qing needed Xiao Zhiga to guard the border for him, it was still imperative for him to have countermeasures against him. Xiao Zhiga looked at the crown prince with eyes that were sharp as blades. It's fine if this prince don't go back to Yanzhou, but if the gates are breached, will His Highness be willing to assume responsibility as commander and take back the city? Will you be responsible for the people of Yanzhou who would be trampled over by the Baidi people? Yanzhou is our first line of defense. Once it is broken, should Liangzhou and Quanzhou fail to hold back the enemies, they can easily march through Suzhou and head straight for Yejing, which would put Yejing in danger. Can elder imperial brother bear these consequences? The crown prince was rendered speechless. He was not adept at warfare and could only retort, is the situation even as urgent as second imperial brother claims? If Yanzhou were to be breached, there's still Suzhou. Can't Chen Tu-su hold them back? Are the troops of this country so incompetent that they can't hold back a group of barbarians? Xiao Zhiga laughed coldly. Why don't you ask General Shen Tu himself if that's plausible? That's enough. Emperor Qing interrupted their argument. He weighed the situation and ultimately decided that they could not let the Baidi people breach the gates of Yanzhou. The crown prince was still young and had not yet set foot on the battlefield, but Emperor Qing himself had once gone with his imperial father a long time ago. Witnessing the strength and ferocity of the Baidi people was nerve-wracking. 3-foot soldiers hadn't been enough to take down one of their cavalry. As such, the Baidi people had become a major threat to the Daya Empire since a long time ago. And over the years, only Xiao Zhiga had shown the ability to surpass them in terms of strength and fearlessness. After giving it some thought, Emperor Qing waved his hand and said, "Fine, you can go, but losing is not an option." "Yes, Your Majesty." Xiao Zhiga knelt down to receive his orders, after which he left the palace to gather his troops. End chapter. The Tyrant's Beloved Empress. Chapter 42. I'm waiting for you to come back. As the cold winds wreaked havoc over the city, 800 soldiers marched in unison outside the city gates, waiting for Xiao Zhiga to lead them to Yanzhou. These were Xiao Zhiga's loyal soldiers that he had brought back to Yejing from Yanzhou. After 3 months of peaceful rest in the prosperous Yejing, they were all in high morale and was ready for the fight. An imperial announcement had also been made that the northern warlord would be marching back to Yanzhou to fight the Baidi people. Wrapped in a fur coat, and Changqing craned his neck trying to look through the smoky dust in the distance. He touched the satchel that he was carrying. Inside were some clothes, dry ration and wine that he had specially prepared for Xiao Zhiga, although Xiao Zhiga was probably already at the city gates and was about to depart. And Changqing was worried that he might not have the chance to pass the satchel to him. He sighed and hugged the bag. The uproar and galloping had attracted the attention of many. The Wang Manor's soup kitchen was located outside the city gates. In addition to handing out warm porridge every day, the shed was also equipped with a large fireplace with burning charcoal to provide temporary shelter for the people at night. Compared to most low-cost inns, many would prefer to gather at the shed at night. This also included the poor scholars from out of town. As such, there were 2 distinct groups huddled at the shed, the scholars and the beggars. An old beggar listened to the sound of trampling hooves and sighed, "Another battle is going to start. I heard that many in the north have died because of the snowstorm. I'm not sure if we can win this time. With the northern warlord's protection, those Baidi scum still have the guts to attack. Hasn't the northern warlord been absent from the border?" Someone whispered. "Those shameless barbarians must have taken advantage of this time to attack. If they manage to break through the city's defenses, countless lives will be lost." The beggars discussed on one side as the scholars sat and listened. One of them couldn't help but laugh and spoke, "The northern warlord is not the only general in the whole of Daya. It's not solely dependent on him to secure the border. He's a ruthless general, but you people treat him as though he's the benevolent Bodhisattva. What a bunch of ignorance." The scholar who had just spoken was dressed neatly in a grey cotton padded robe and carried himself with pride as he looked at the beggars with disdain. The beggars turned spiteful eyes towards the scholar. The old beggar waved his hand to calm them. He then said to the scholar, "We beggars are illiterate, but we still know that we shouldn't bite the hand that feeds us. This young master here is so displeased with the northern warlord but totally fine with accepting the goodwill of the Wang manor." Whoever did not know that the soup kitchen was built by the Wang manor? Moreover, the prices of grains and winter clothes had risen everywhere, but only those of the Wang manor's shops remained the same. Thanks to this, the other shops could not make any sales and were forced to lower their prices. How the entire situation had played out, the people of Yejing had kept in their hearts. Although it was Wang Fei who had managed the operations, everyone knew that it was the combined effort of Wang Ye and his Wang Fei. Since then, no one had said a single bad thing about the northern warlord anymore. The rumors that used to circulate the streets had now been discredited. After all, no one had witnessed the northern warlord's brutality, but many had been sheltered by the Wang manor's goodwill. Anyone with a conscience would know that they shouldn't continue to say bad things about the northern warlord. Ironically, it was the learned scholars who could not see the truth. The outspoken scholar choked up. He thought for a while and retaliated, "The northern warlord was only acting under the orders of the emperor. If you want to thank anyone, it should be His Majesty. And don't forget, the northern warlord had once killed tens of thousands of Baidi prisoners. Such a cold-blooded person, there's always the possibility that after he has killed all the Baidi people, he would turn to killing his own people for fun." The more he said, the more justified he felt regarding his words. The Daya Empire advocates benevolence and filial piety. A cruel and murderous general is not worthy of praise. What nonsense! A young beggar spat at him. Our enemies from the north had always been treacherous. To show them mercy is the same as waiting for them to kill us. Exactly. Has reading too many books blinded you? I've never been to school, but even I can understand that much. The little beggars had recently been addicted to the storyteller's tales of Wang Fei and Wang Ye. Even the fearsome feats of the northern warlord from before had become source of admiration. They wished they could join the northern warlord in his attempts to fight off the enemies and couldn't stand to hear anyone besmirch his name. The scholar's face turned pale after being demeaned by the group of beggars. He turned to look at his fellow scholars for support, but found that they too had moved away from him. One of them even spoke up, "With regards to the teachings of having integrity, righteousness, and honor, since we have received the grace of others, we should be grateful instead of throwing dirt at our benefactor, which is a very shameful conduct." Looking around, the scholar found that he had been alienated. He snorted angrily, flung his sleeves and left the shed. A little beggar behind him shouted, "If you think you're so great, then don't come back." Asterisk asterisk asterisk. What had happened on the other side of the soup kitchen, and Chang Qing was unaware of. More so of the fact that the northern warlord's reputation was slowly beginning to improve. And Chang Qing was now sitting in front of the soup kitchen cuddling Xiao Zhiga's things while looking towards the direction of the camp. He held on to a glimmer of hope that since Tiehu was still with him, Xiao Zhiga wouldn't leave directly. Just as he thought so, he heard Tiehu's voice, "Someone is coming." And Chang Qing immediately stood up and looked eagerly towards the group of people in the distance. On the snowy path, a heroic figure carrying a black and golden spear sat on horseback as he rode gallantly against the snow and wind towards the gate. "It's Wang Ye," Tiehu said. Before he could say anything else, and Chang Qing had already picked up the satchel and ran over. The winds had turned harsh, but Chang Qing did not feel the cold. His smile broadened as the sight of that person became clearer. "That's good. He hasn't left yet." There were still many words that Chang Qing had yet to tell him. Xiao Zhiga's sharp eyesight was able to spot Chang Qing standing in the snow waiting for him. He nudged his horse to hasten its pace. Shortly after, he was right in front of Chang Qing. And Chang Qing was covered in snow as he looked at Xiao Zhiga, eyes brimming with light. "I'm glad I get to meet you once more before you leave." He then quickly passed the items in his hand to Xiao Zhiga. I've prepared dried food and wine for Wang Ye to take with you on the road. Xiao Zhiga hung the satchel on the saddle and sighed. He brushed the snow off for An Changqing and held his frozen hand. He gently rubbed it and said, "Why didn't you wait back at the manor? It's cold here. I was afraid that you won't have the time to come back." And Changqing knew that Xiao Zhiga had headed straight for the camp after he left the palace. The matters of war have always been urgent. He was not sure if Xiao Zhiga would be able to return to the manor and hence, waited for him at the city gates. Xiao Zhiga faintly smiled. He reached out to touch his cheek and spoke to him softly, "I'll be leaving for Yanzhou as of now. Everything in the Wang Manor is under your command. Tiehu will stay and protect you. I've left 200 soldiers at the barracks outside the city. If anything happens, tell Tiehu to carry my seal to seek assistance from them." After speaking, he hugged the person into his arms and whispered, "Wait for my return." Their parting was imminent, but Xiao Zhiga had never been good with words. He could only express his reluctance with a powerful hug. And Changqing snuggled affectionately against his chest before he withdrew from his arms. "I wish Wang Ye a swift victory and early return. I'll be waiting for you back at the manor." Xiao Zhiga looked at him longingly before turning to Tiehu and commanded, "Protect Wang Fei at all costs. This is a military order." Tiehu was initially unsettled with not being able to join the fight in Yanzhou, but upon seeing how important Wang Fei was to Xiao Zhiga, he knew that his mission was also of great significance. Tiehu knelt on the snow and responded, "I understand. I'm going now." Finally, Xiao Zhiga took one last look at An Changqing and strode away. This time, he did not turn back. An Changqing stood and watched Xiao Zhiga leave until his back disappeared into the snowscape. Much to An Changqing's chagrin, he clearly had much to say to Xiao Zhiga, but once he saw him, he had been at a loss for words. He looked at the deep prints on the snow and said, "Let's go back." *******. On the 25th of the second month, the northern warlord led 800 elite soldiers and headed for Yanzhou. On the 1st of the third month, an urgent report came in stating that Lord Sun, Huyan Ate of the Baidi's army, had led a ferocious troop of 50,000 soldiers, charging straight for Yanyun County. On the 10th of the third month, the heavy snow that had blighted Yejing for over a month had finally lifted. The sky turned blue and greenery returned to the land. The snow had melted and spring had finally come. The soup kitchen outside the city had also been taken down and only a few pieces of winter clothes were still left in the shops. And Changqing and the store managers began to tally up the accounts. A total of 1.3 million taels were spent to stock up rice, winter clothes, and coal. As rice and winter clothes were sold at regular prices and half of it was also used for charity, they only managed to earn back the cost price. It was the coal that had earned An Changqing a profit of 700,000 taels of silver. And Changqing handed a small bonus to the store managers and left with Zhou Helan back to the Wang Manor. Currently, the Wang Manor had only one master left, and An Changqing frequently left the house to patrol the shops. Even the servants were beginning to feel the emptiness of the place ever since Wang Ye had left. And Changqing sat alone on the bed after having washed and changed into his night robes. He touched the unwarmed mattress and sighed. Habit was a scary thing. It made one grow accustomed to a person's existence and then forces one to get used to the same person's absence. After reminiscing, An Changqing was reminded of a certain matter and reached for the items inside the cabinet by the bed. He blushed and hesitated, but thinking of the person who should have reached Yanzhou by now, he slowly followed the guidelines step by step. End chapter.